Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. So lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And tonight we've got a really special live stream. We're going to have two people who we all know very well joining us. That's Pastor Dan and also, of course, Muzi Nkosi. And we're going to be talking about what the heck is going on in the world today, with probably a strong biblical leaning. And while I was preparing for this live stream, the famous piece out of one of Shakespeare's books came to mind, and I want to play that for you. And that piece starts, "All the world is a stage." And then after playing that, we'll get our two guests on. Here we go.
All the World's a Stage, from As You Like It, by William Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms, and then the whining schoolboy, with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths, and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation, even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly, with good capon lined, with eyes severe, and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all, that ends this strange, eventful history, is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sounds, everything.
That is the genius of
Shakespeare spent much of his life.
Sorry, guys, I'll just terminate that. Now, let me get our guests on. Here we go. Hi, Muzi.
Hi, Scott.
How you going, buddy?
I'm alright, and you?
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Let me get Dan on and we can get the show on the road, okay?
Alright.
Okay, here we go. Call, add. Okay. So, hi Dan. I think Dan is just coming through now. I spoke to Dan a moment ago.
Right.
Here he is. Hi Dan.
Hello, Scott.
How are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. And yourself?
Excellent, excellent, mate, excellent. And you guys obviously know each other?
Yes, Muzi and I know each other. We go back a while.
Yeah.
Well, you're all part of the Loving Life family. Now,
Indeed, we are.
Yeah.
I've just lost contact because I've been booted off this idiot YouTube thing, and I can't even get onto the chat. So I just sit like a dumb cluck at night, and I watch the occasional program, the occasional live stream. But I can't join in the chat and the fun or anything.
yeah, look, YouTube are just feral. And one of the things I want to do with Loving Life TV is to basically do the live streams from our own platform with the ability
Yes.
to have, comments down the side like you do on YouTube.
Yes.
But that's a work in
Yes.
progress. I don't know when we'll get that done. No,
Well, I've bought a Tokolosh and I'm going to send it over to these idiots at YouTube and see if that.
you'll find them all sleeping on bricks. Anyway, guys, we're going to have a very informal chat tonight, and I've got some talking points from Muzi. We'll get into those, but I started this live stream off with that famous little piece by Shakespeare, "All the World's a Stage," and the 7 stages of life. I mean, it's a fascinating and beautifully written bit of prose. And it's completely out of context with Muzi's 10 talking points, but I don't think that really matters. Muzi.
I'm going to listen with interest.
Yeah. Well, Muzi, let's kick off with I guess your initial point, which is how the masses out there today seem to be. Oopsie, I think I have got a problem with my audio. Let me just see. Okay, guys, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah, but I don't know if they could hear me. Let's see, guys. If you can hear me, if you can just type 1, and okay. Well, look, we'll just keep going. All right. Now, okay. So, Muzi, your first question was, or comment was, the masses. You know, the general population out there. They seem to be living in an unreal world. They don't really understand what's going on, do they? Do you want to talk to that? Because you would have a very different perspective to Dan. So I'd like to get both your views on this.
Yeah, well, if we look at it demographically, I would say Gen Z, those age 25 and younger, they are in their own little world, which is completely insane, in which they cannot see reality for what it really is. They live life through a social media lens, and when you try to shake them up and see the consequences of living in the digital world and not here, they'll throw a fit or throw hands at you or want to fight you about it and try to convince themselves that they are within a fantasy world. They are in a movie. They are their own celebrity. And proof of this was today when I went to the youth conference. I only went there just to prove exactly what I'm talking about. That, okay, I'm going there just to show myself um, again that yes, everybody has lost it. Everybody thinks they're a celebrity. They are high on vanity and believe taking pictures and hashtagging it means one day they'll get a business opportunity. I enter the building, everybody's taking pictures, everybody thinks they're a celebrity. And I said, okay, that's check number one. Check number two, I know all the speakers are going to be lying and reinforcing their biases, their confirmation bias. And that's exactly what happened. That these speakers were there to make sure that they stay in their fantasy world, that they believe their fantasy world, that don't dare let anybody else tell you that this isn't what life is about. You must love money, you must talk to money, and it will talk to you. Absolute rubbish like this. And this was like a 60-year-old woman saying this. You must brand yourself a certain way to attract different opportunities. You know, it was completely absurd. And then you have those who are slightly older who are in their own little fantasy, who were able to reap the rewards of the current system that is now changing or falling apart, the current system transitioning to the fourth industrial revolution, AI system that's going to put everybody out of a purpose. And those people who reap the rewards of the system while it was young, they're also in their own delusions, holding on to this changing system, thinking things will go back to how it was 30 years ago. And they refuse to see the transitioning stages of everything. And we who are in between, we're the ones who are left paralyzed. It's like, what am I supposed to do? The world is changing and it doesn't have a future for me in it. Humans are not in the future. You know, the Antichrist system, the beast system is doing that on purpose. And then the younger people don't get it because they're being reinforced by fake social media. The slightly older people don't get it because they're living in the past and don't want to let go of it and look outside. And then this is a huge problem because when people like myself see that I can't talk to the young or older, some of them just can't take it anymore and they jump off a building because they then start doubting themselves. The reality itself starts to gaslight them that is it me who's crazy or is it them? I don't know. I don't know what to do. Next thing you know, their brain fries and they jump off a building.
Yeah, well, look, let me assure you of one thing, Muzi. You're not crazy. You're a very, very smart young man. We all know that in loving life. And your insights are so valuable. And it was interesting, about a month ago, I had a live stream with a woman who basically taught me that the new young generation are called snowflakes. And they're called snowflakes because they feel empowered and entitled, but you put them under any pressure and they crumble. They've got absolutely no backbone at all. Dan, I know I can say this to you because we're good friends. And look, just like me, you're an old fart. Okay, so we've seen life through many, many years. And when you look at what's happening in the world today, with respect to how people seem to be living in this fantasy world and not realizing how dangerous it has become, thanks to organizations like the World Economic Forum. What do you have to say about what's happening right now in the world?
Scott, yeah, I watch Fox and I watch NBC and I watch ABC and so on. And one or two things that jump out there is if you watch Fox, there's this constant wrestling against the woke agendas, and there's this constant wrestling about what's happening in their schools and so on, and it's coming out. And there's this constant stealing so much money, and the son, Hunter Biden, is stealing so on now for 2 years. And there have been times where I thought, well, why the heck don't they do something about it? Why do they just keep talking about it? And I think it's a little bit like Muzi was saying now, that people have lost touch with reality. A while back, a couple of years back, well, certainly when I was a young man, I think all this nonsense in America, they would have done something about it, but they just don't seem to do anything. They just complain about the mainstream media and how corrupt they are, and how corrupt the FBI is, and how corrupt the CIA. And there's this whistleblower, that was a.
Sorry, guys,
I live very close to Port Elizabeth University.
Right. Okay,
So
guys.
and look, I was a student as well, and we used to have our times, but it was generally in Bromfontein, and that's where we used to gather and have our fun.
Yeah. Now, Dan, your internet's breaking up a little bit,
Yes.
but we can get the context of what you're saying. But this is South African internet,
Okay.
so it's not a problem. Okay, but yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, and I see these youngsters walking past, and it just seems as if their academic day is spent on the streets. And if it's not spent on the streets, then it's spent on the campus, dancing around and moaning about the fact that they've got to pay academic fees, and they've got to study, and they've got to work. And when I look at the future that waits for them, that is so worrying for the young folk, because they spend, the ones that do try, go there and they spend their 3 or 4 years and they get their degrees and so on. And then they come out into a social climate where there's just no work. I don't think we've ever had unemployment like we have at the moment in this country. I drive around PE, and there are certain streets where the fellas sit, and they sit with their paint brushes, and they sit with their paint rollers and so on, looking for work. And there's just no work. It's dreadful. It really is. I think, sadly, that this generation of youngsters now is the saddest generation that have been born.
Yeah. Well,
hopeless generation.
Just on the point you're raising, Dan, I just want to go to Muzi with this one. The education system today is completely cactus. I mean, you've now got this Bella bill that they want to bring in, where not only public schools, but private schools like Hilton College, Michael House, Kearsney College, even primary schools like Cornwallis in Pietermaritzburg, which I went to, will be forced to teach comprehensive sex education as a subject in the curriculum. They won't have a choice under the Bella Bill. They will have to teach it from 5 years old that it's okay to be a girl if you're a boy. Now, I tell you why I'm talking about this, because I'm a member of the old boys at Michael House, and I put up a little feed in their news feed about this, and I put a link to one of my videos where I talked about how this could impact Michael House and what is the school going to do about it. Because can you imagine kids coming out of Cornwallis who've been taught it's okay to be a girl when they're at an all-boys school? So this is not just like where you got boys and girls mixing in a public school. This is an all-boys school. Can you imagine the scenario where one of those kids, who will be protected, suddenly says, I'm a girl? I mean, what will that do to the entire school? And then that kid then has to be taken to Michael House, another boarding school for boys and men. This is This is madness. Muzi, what are your thoughts about this?
It's insanity, and it's sad that, I mean, so few people are fighting against this. And when I've asked a few black people from the townships, what do you think about this? They just say, "Oh, that's just crazy. They better not do such a thing." And I said, "Well, they are doing it." So, nah, they not. And I asked, do you talk to your children about what they learn in school? And the answer is sometimes, or no, or I don't have time, I'm tired. And I said, exactly. You don't even know right now if your kids are learning all this crazy stuff. You don't know. And you don't care. And that's actually the thing. They just don't care. The kids, every day, they're being brainwashed over there. And I'm pretty sure those teachers tell them that don't tell your parents about this. Your parents don't need to know. You can be an adult too. You can be just as smart. But I have noticed that it's mostly schools in the cities that do push this, and the private schools. In terms of schools in the townships, yeah, not from what I've heard, not at all. They actually do chase you away if you are part of the rainbow community. That's what I've heard. I'm not sure if it's legit, but I do know that the parents themselves, they don't necessarily care. So I would not know if they actually are learning this yet or not at the school. I was just told that they wouldn't allow it, and they don't allow kids to be gay and stuff. So yeah, it's sad. But everybody else, with those with the means and the media, they're not doing enough. Instead, at the conference where I was at, the lawyer lady was talking absolute rubbish. She said Stephen Hoffmeyer was transphobic, and so he got what he deserved. He had to pay a settlement of 500,000, I think, or 100,000, and yeah, because he was being homophobic and stuff like that. And I said, you see, this is the problems that mainstream, when there are people trying to improve themselves, they encounter these gatekeepers who just push their agenda straight in their face, constantly and constantly. They told us about hate speech. I even asked, if you're going to talk about hate speech, how come you charged Stephen Hoffmeyer, but you didn't charge Julius Malema for saying kill the Boer? And she said, well, hate speech is not technically a crime. But Stephen Hoffmeyer was charged. You know, the lady Vicky whatever for using the K word, she was charged, but you just said it's not a crime. And so you get people in high positions of law who are just going along with this. They don't think twice about it. You try to point it out that you're not making any sense, no problem. And apparently I found out, I know this is a bit out of topic, but I found out that it is legal to marry minors here. I had no idea. It's part of customary law. And it's contradictory to a lot of things that they showed to us. So there's a lot of gaslighting. And I want to say people are just too traumatized to get involved. I just say, no, people are just too lazy to get involved. They think it's not going to affect them, but it already is,
Yeah.
sadly.
Now, the woman you're referring to there was Vicky Momberg, and I actually had on a
Yeah.
live stream about 2 years ago. And what a crazy story that was. And of course, you had Penny Sparrow as well. But look, Dan, just getting to you regarding this whole thing with the education system. When I went to boarding school, we had a church service every morning. It was only a very short one. It was about 15 minutes where we said prayers and stuff like that. And the whole Christian side in the education system appears to have been pushed out the back door, and taking its place is a satanic cult who are trying to, you know, indoctrinate and perverse the entire morality of the youth today. Why is the church not speaking out more about this?
Just just before I say anything about that, in terms of what you were speaking about now with Muzi and what's coming to the South African schools. Well, it's all over the world. I mean,
Yes.
it's in America, it's in the UK, it's all over. And you know what I find so difficult to understand is why don't we, or why don't the young parents do something? I look at this issue in the States that keeps raising its head. Again, it's a worldwide phenomenon, but this transgender sport. And of course, you've got young men swimming and running and jumping and lifting weights and so on against women, and they're breaking records left, right, and center. Now, you know, they could put a stop to that tomorrow. If all the girls in the competition, let's say a swimming competition, if they, at the moment of the race, if a male joined to take the starter's gun, if they all turned away and walked away and said we will not swim, they'll put a stop to this nonsense within a month. And you know that's what I'm saying about the schools and so on. If the parents just stood up and said you're not going to bring that into the school, and whatever action they decide to take, but if they just refuse to allow their children to have that kind of teaching, it'll put a stop to this nonsense. And yeah, you know, Scott, you mentioned the church. Well, my heart breaks over the church, but now I've divided the church into two now. I still see one part of it, the church, the body of Christ, as the holy, perfect organ that God has designed and elected and created. And standing next to that is the secular church that we have come to all experience over the centuries. And the secular church is in a state of total apostasy now. It doesn't speak up about any of these things, nothing. You know, the church has gone through a financial Armageddon with all this COVID nonsense that started. And it hasn't come right. Many Christians no longer return to the old places where they used to worship. But the church, through its own silence, is killing itself, and really has become an apostate church. It says nothing against the state. It says nothing against government. All of these ridiculous laws are brought in and suggested, and the church is there. All you hear from them is a deathly silence. So yeah, but you know, in terms of the Revelation study that I did, when you read the first 3 chapters of Revelations, and you see God's judgment that is passed on the churches, then you discover that the churches, from the Catholic Church to the to the Protestant church, they have all failed in what God has asked them to do. And I think probably the reason is fear. They fear the state. And yet Christ, when he called us, if you have to die for your faith, then you must die for your faith.
Yeah.
But there's none of that anymore in the church. And the church, the Methodist Church of South Africa, and I'm sad to say this because I still take the odd services there and so on, but I do them for free, so they can't kick me out. But recently, there was a letter from the bishop's recommendation, bishop's rule actually, that from now on every church council in the Methodist Church must have a Sangoma on the leadership.
What? You're joking?
Oh my goodness!
Not joking. I wish I was joking.
What?
And nobody said anything. The guys who ought to know better, they don't say anything. They just, well, okay, that's the bishop's what he wants, so we better do it. It's rubbish, man.
Absolutely.
I said a very good friend of mine during COVID, I said, well, you know what you guys have done wrong here? You closed the churches. You said there's 50 people allowed in a church on a Sunday. I said that is absolute rubbish. But you can go and join in and go through the malls on a Sunday where there's thousands of people around, and that you said nothing about. But you closed your doors to people when they needed Christ the most.
Yeah.
That's why people have left you guys. No, the church has failed totally. It's a real wake-up call. And the only wake-up call that it will, I think, get is when people say, well, you're not going to get my tithe anymore. My tithe goes to God. It goes to feed the poor, or it goes to feed someone who's cold, or clothe someone who's cold, or someone who's in prison to give him some assistance or something. But you are not going to get my tithe anymore. If we withhold our tithe, the church might one day wake up.
Yeah.
When it's broke.
Yeah. Well, that time can't come soon enough. I really think that it has to be redesigned. The entire Christian aspect of it is completely stuffed.
Yeah.
Totally. Now, Muzi,
it's not going to change, Scott, because with my study in Revelation, I'm convinced we are now really in the end time.
Oh, look,
and it's not going to change because that's what God has said it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, look, just for those listening, I'm sure most of you do, but Dan has got the most fantastic series of lessons, lectures, sermons about the book of Revelations. And if you go into the Loving Life archives and at the top type in Sunday service, you can actually see, starting at lesson 1, going up to, we got 34 happening on Sunday. And that there's only one left after that, isn't there, Dan? So it's 35 and that's it.
No, there may be another 2, maybe 3.
Okay.
After this one, which is the judgment in Revelation, the great white throne judgment. After that, there's the creation of a new world and the creation of a new Jerusalem, and then there's the final goodbye message of Revelation. So there's probably another 2, maybe 3.
Right. Well, again, just for those listening, Dan's sermons on this subject have received, in some cases, over 10,000 views. I mean, that's how popular his Sunday services have become. And just for the record, Dan is going to be putting this series into hard copy, a PDF. And in fact, the illustrator, the person who's going to be doing the images for Dan's book, is Muzi, who's a very, very talented cartoonist and artist. And yeah, so this will probably only sort of come out, I'd say, probably near Christmas this year, Dan, because there's a lot of work in this, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of work attached.
Yeah.
And if Muzi, agrees to go along with this and puts his art into it, then I think we're talking only around about before Christmas.
Yeah. All right. Well, that gives us a timeline.
Yeah.
Now, Muzi, we've already touched on this, but everyone under the age of 25 today seems to be living in a fantasy world, and I think what the problem behind that is that little mobile phone that they walk around with, because it's almost like an appendage now, isn't it?
Yep. Pretty much. They can't go anywhere without it. And whenever they are in the real world, they only try to look at things that they saw on social media. Anything that doesn't look like a TikTok video, or anyone who doesn't talk or behave like a TikTok moron, they don't want to associate with people like that. Everyone has to have this fake glossiness about them, and they don't realize. I'm sure, surely they must realize, but I guess it doesn't matter, because there's comfort in being in a group of liars. It's no different to the African tribalism, where everybody knows that this is not the ideal way to live, but because we're all in it together, I suppose it's fine. I suppose it's fine if the Swazi king is murdering everyone, as long as we're all in this together. We're not going to say anything. We're not going to talk about the reality and the hardships of staying committed to this worthless culture. So long as we can look good while we suffer, then it's worth it. I don't know how far they think about this stuff, but they all just cluster amongst themselves, and whenever they talk, it's just retweets. They talk about what somebody retweeted. Honestly, what comes out of you is what Kim Kardashian said in the last hour, and then the person responds with what Kylie Jenner said. It's like, you are not talking about what is happening here. You are talking about what's happening in the internet and what you want to bring from the internet to the real world to feel like you live on the internet. And again, it's what I saw at the youth conference. What I did notice was a lot of the men, the young men too, are becoming very feminine in their behavior, in terms of they're also doing this sort of thing, this glamour, feminine way of doing things. And it's totally messed up, because like, this is not how a man should operate. But the whole event was organized by the Women's Youth League or something, which has been in existence for 30 years. And of course, there wasn't actually a single man who could serve as a role model for any of us. There were a lot of women talking, and they were all just reinforcing the lie. Just put on your makeup and build your brand and you'll get opportunities. Absolute rubbish. The dudes who were talking were just talking smack. They didn't sound serious. You could not take them serious. And there was just complete hopelessness. So social media gives these young people hope. The real world doesn't. When they switch off their phone, you might as well leave them in a graveyard at night. That's how scary it is for them to live without it, because reality is so dim, it's so gloomy, it's so empty. And on top of that, no one really wants to listen to them if they have problems. So they drown themselves in watching their favorite celebrities deal with their fake problems for them. and then they sympathize or relate more to the character on the internet and identify with that character on the internet, and they don't identify with anyone in reality, particularly the guys.
Yeah.
No young man identifies with a young or with another man in the real world, as far as I know. So,
Dan,
yeah.
Dan, I just want to put this point to you, and that is that, 20, 30 years ago, feminism was at its peak. Women's rights and getting the jobs and all this sort of stuff was huge. I mean, it was like the BLM agenda today, or the transsexual agenda today. And the irony is that the biggest part of our population that's impacted by this whole transgender fiasco are women. And it's not just on the sports field. Now they've got toilets where men who've got penises can go in a school, can go into the woman's toilet because they claim they're a woman. I mean, that is a scenario for absolute disaster. I mean, there's going to be rapes. There's going to be things happening in there that it's absolutely gobsmacking. What are your thoughts about the impact this is going to have on the fairer sex, the women in society?
Yeah, I've often felt so sorry for them recently. Look, they've been pushed into very, very senior positions, and they perform well. The women seem to do the job as well as, if not better than, many men did in the past. But there are, I believe, some areas where really women shouldn't be employed, and they are nowadays. I mean, underground. Before I went into the ministry, I spent a long time on the mines, and it's a hard environment. It's dirty. It's hot. It's unpleasant to work there, and the mining guys, well, they had a certain different approach to life, I suppose, and they managed to get through each day and go to work the next day. You would never see a woman underground, though. And nowadays, I know in some of the very big mines, they've got miners, not shift bosses, mine captains and stuff like that, although they are there as well. But they've actually got some women who are mining. Now, I just can't get that over my mind, how on earth they could do a physically hard job like that. But yeah, year when I was in the States, we were in Woodstock, and after I'd had breakfast, I wanted to go to the toilet, and I got to this door, and there were different images on this door, but one of them was an image I couldn't make out, and I said to a fellow standing there, "What the hell is this?" He said, "No, that's if you're a man or a woman, you can use that, And I said, "Well, is there anybody in there now?" He said, "No, he doesn't. No, it doesn't matter. I can go in, And I went, and eventually I had a wee outside of Woodstock next to the side of the road because I was so confused in the restaurant. It's very sad where everything is going. And, the woman who struggled for so many centuries or some kind of equality. It's all being stripped away from them now.
Yeah. Well, the world is absolutely crazy, and there are so many comments in the side chat from people saying how crazy the world is. And I'll give you an example of what's happening in America. There was an article in Zero Hedge just today. San Francisco, which is one of the biggest cities in California in America. This is what they say. Downtown San Francisco has been dealt another blow after Westfield and its partner Brookfield Properties made the difficult decision to stop payment on a $558 million loan for the metro area's largest shopping mall after challenging operating conditions, the San Francisco Chronicle reported. And those challenging operating conditions are all the homeless people who are just now camped all around these shopping malls, literally crap on the pavement, smell of urine. It's disgusting in these city centers. And just to compound the issue, the theft. Did you know that in Los Angeles that someone can go into a supermarket, steal $500 worth of stuff, and the police won't respond to it's got to be, I think it's got to be over $1,000, otherwise they don't even intercede. So you can basically have someone come in, filling their shopping trolley, walking out without paying, and the shop can't do anything about it. And in cities like Portland, which is in Oregon, also in the USA, their Walmarts there have shut down because of this very issue. They've actually shut down these big shops in the city. It's absolute insanity. Where are we going? What's happening here?
It's open season on lawlessness, isn't it? And I can't get away from the realization that this is all the part of satanic deception. The world is being deceived. And some guys listening to me now would say, "Oh, this is an old fool, or an old idiot, or he's daft in his head, or he's full of hocus pocus and fairies." But really, when you look at what is going on and those kind of things, because you find it in South Africa as well. Muzi mentioned it just now. Don't use the K word in South Africa because you'll go to jail. But guys like Malema and these other idiots, they can say what they like about a Mulungu, a white man, Mulungu with white scum. They can say what they like. Nobody says a thing. It's just a total. It's like scripture. We're talking about. We call things that are bitter sweet and sweet bitter. We call darkness light and light darkness. And really, this is what Satan is doing. This is how he's deceiving the world. He goes constantly against the word of God. If God says, "Thou shalt not kill," he says, "No, it's okay. You can go ahead. You can kill. Abort as many babies as you want to. Kill them. You can. In fact, now you don't even have to kill them in the womb. You can let the mother give birth and let them lie on the table and die." And when God says, "Thou shalt not kill," they say, "Go ahead, you can kill." But when God says, "Punish a murderer with his own life," that's the only way to punish him. He must forfeit his own life. Then the world jumps around, or the satanic thought jumps around and says, "No, the death penalty is wicked. Look after him for the next 60, 70 years in jail."
Yeah.
It's crazy. Nothing makes sense anymore.
Yeah. Muzi, is there anything you'd like to add to what Dan was saying?
Not really.
Okay. You're comfortable with what Dan put forward there?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the thing is, the point really that I'm trying to make here is that lawlessness, when I was a young man, if I stole a chappie's bubblegum, and walked out the door, I would have been taken to the police station and a docket would have been made out and I'd have had to appear in court. But today...
that was a half a penny.
Yeah, that's a halfpenny, yeah.
Yeah.
But today, apparently you can do anything and get away with it. The lawlessness is crazy. Anything you want to say about that, Muzi? Your experience with that?
Mm, well, for me, from what I've seen, here things are where I'm at in Nelspruit. They sort of calmed down a little bit. What I'm seeing is that people are not committing as much petty crime. This is just in my area,
Yeah.
as much as before. I am seeing that more and more people are either ending it or going into witchcraft for a means to make money. They are participating in the popular one, the snake magic ritual, where they literally get a snake from the Sangoma that brings them money. And it's actually real, but you don't have very long to live. So people have had it, they've just had it. So yeah, they don't even have the energy to commit crime anymore. That's what I'm seeing. Because the nonsense that we see in KZN and stuff like that, that's KZN. In Joburg, of course, I'm seeing that more foreigners are the ones who are causing crime now, but it's a bit more organized. So yeah, things are changing, and it's not the same. It's not the same mayhem, I'd say, as it was a year ago or 2 years ago. It's becoming a bit more structured in how people commit the crimes, but at the same time, many are just dying off.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm going to change the complete focus of this discussion because it's in Muzi's talking points, and I want to keep these issues alive because they're very topical. And one of these is about the cholera outbreak in Gauteng, and in particular in Hammanskraal, where apparently the water treatment work is a joke, and the color of the water is like soup. Do you want to speak to that, Muzi?
Yeah, I saw the video where people were celebrating when Cyril arrived, singing his name. Instead of being upset, they were happy that the one who poisoned the water has arrived. And a lot of people were angry on social media that how dumb are you people? There was a lot of shame in being part of this community, that why are these people so stupid? But others said no, those were not residents of the area. Those were people bussed in from a different province. And even if that was true, um, those same people who were bussed in, they don't have water themselves. They don't have electricity themselves. And I remember this happening in 2021, where there was a strike near where I lived, and I went there and I asked the people in the taxi, "Why are you guys here? What's going on?" And they didn't know. They didn't know why they were there. They were all wearing ANC t-shirts. They were just all brought in from the townships, given a t-shirt and some KFC. They had no idea why they were there. So if it is true that the people of those people celebrating Hammanskraal really were from a different place, it doesn't make sense still, because they too don't have anything. They are bribed for their submission to live in terrible conditions like this, and experiencing cholera and everything. So I have a friend in Gauteng. He's in the rich side of Gauteng, and the water's undrinkable there. And I asked him, "What about people your age? Are they angry? Are they gonna fight?" And he said, "No, they're just making jokes about everything." And I said, "Wow, it's a darn shame that the majority, the masses of these people here, they have no problems with problems." Something I once said before: their relationship with death and their love of the ancestors. Well, this is what you get. The ancestor tells you, "It's okay, drink that poison water. You'll be fine. You don't need life-giving water. You need death-giving water." They drink it, die, and they can blame whoever they want, but it's never themselves. So we're in a huge pickle here where the main issue is not even the government. It's the people. I see now that tyrants like Julius Malema, and even Robert Mugabe, they had to become what they are because the people demanded it. I saw somebody who came to this realization a week ago who said, for all these years, I've been trying to uplift and teach and help these people bring themselves up. They don't want to. They want a tyrant. They want a liar. They want a murderer. And for me to be anything, because I'm smarter than the masses, if I'm smart, I have to be the murderer because that's what they want. They want to be taken advantage of. They love it, you know. And so it's completely inhuman. That's what, like, are you insane? But this is what happens when you worship the ancestors. This is what they do. And we have Ancestor Day every year. People, every celebrity giving thanks to them, the president giving thanks to them, giving thanks to the demons running amok, possessing the children in school. Now people are dying of cholera, and they still give thanks to the ancestors. So us who have a brain, well, now we have to spend money on buying water at the shop. You know, it's not fair. But it's because of the masses. I don't necessarily blame the government anymore because it's the idiots who worship death that demand more death. And so everybody else suffers too.
Yeah, well,
Sadly.
we're going to be having a live stream hopefully later this month with a few people from the Ugu municipality, which is in southern part of KZN, northern part of the Eastern Cape. And Ugu has had a water issue for years now, and it's really crazy because their water source is the Amzimkulu River, which is, I know it well because I lived in Ekopo many years ago, and it's a huge river. It's a fantastic source of drinking water, but it's become so polluted now that it's just absolutely crazy. Now, when we talk about pollution and cholera and all this sort of stuff, Dan, do you think this is a form of almost like biblical retribution from God because people are just so lost in the world today?
That's a difficult, difficult question. You know, look, I believe that God is a loving Father who disciplines us. Sometimes the discipline is tough, but I don't think God is the organizer or the power behind plagues falling upon people, except when it comes to a biblical judgment.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these dreadful things that are happening, you know, like the cholera outbreak in Gauteng, it's as a result of our own negligence, our own laziness, our own in consideration of doing our job properly. It's our own fault. And of course, I believe that the devil just that on. I really don't think we can blame God.
Sorry, guys, this is South African
But
internet.
God was laid upon from. He does visit plagues upon people.
Yeah.
You know, it can also.
Sorry, Dan, you're breaking up at the moment. Dan, we'll get back to you in a second. I've just seen a message put into the side chat, and I'd like Muzi just to respond to this. Dan, sorry, we lost you there for a little while with the internet, so I'm just going to move on to some breaking news. And Muzi, it's just been announced that the NHI bill has been passed by the government. What do you have to say to that?
I heard about it, but I don't actually know the details of it. What are the details exactly?
Well, apparently it means the end of private healthcare in South Africa. Everything's going to be put into one big bundle. You'll have stakeholders like the Clinton Foundation coming in and running healthcare in South Africa for profit, which means that the average person won't be able to afford to go to a hospital because it won't be free anymore. They're going to be charging. The whole thing is changing before our eyes, and it's just going from bad to worse. What are your thoughts about this whole thing?
So does that mean they privatized all of healthcare or they nationalized all of healthcare?
No, it means that it's called public-private partnerships, and this has been pushed by the World Economic Forum.
Oh,
And what public-private partnerships are is where, like a government department, like the health department, is basically in partnership with a commercial organization, even though they claim to be a non-profit foundation, like the Clinton Foundation, or let's say the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who then run the health for the South African government as a commercial operation.
oh boy, that is a nightmare. Uh, wow. A lot of people are just going to drop, I suppose. This is insane. Now having medical aid is no longer a gift anymore, basically. You're doomed because if the government is, handling things and working within the private sector of the healthcare system, oh wow. This is bad. This is really bad. Yeesh. I'm actually speechless. It's a catastrophe. Whoa.
Well,
This is not good at all.
the hospital system already is a complete and utter disgrace, and I think, Dan, you've got a recent experience of that, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah, no, the hospital system is in a shocking state anyway. And the only decent hospitals, for example, in a place like Port Elizabeth, where um, uh,
Gotta love South African internet. Okay, we'll come back to Dan. Dan seems to have frozen. All right, so yeah, so
and
sorry, Dan, we lost you there. Could you just repeat? Dan, are you there?
yes,
Yeah, sorry. Could you just repeat?
I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah, we lost you completely.
Well, I think, yeah, I think that there are effects. The one is, in a place like Port Elizabeth, we have lost so many top specialists, and you're sitting with half the number that we had 4 or 5 years ago. And this, what you've just announced now, if that is genuine and it's been passed, well, I can see even more doctors, especially your younger ones and your fellows that are specialized and so on. I can see them just pushing off once again. They'll push off in droves. And of course, that leaves your less sort of qualified guys staying behind, or your fellas that aren't as good in their profession staying behind, and then having to cope with double the numbers that they're already trying to cope with. It's a disaster, but the whole medical system in the country has fallen apart. I mean, we moved from a country that did the first heart transplant with Chris Barnard, way back in the 60s. We've moved from there to a position now where I think a Sangoma, as status as a guy with the NBCHB.
Well, apparently, Sangomas can now actually charge um, or get money from the government when they actually counsel people. That's what I've heard. Muzi, do you know about that?
Well, it would explain the high numbers of people, becoming Sangomas. So it's most likely possible, yeah.
Submit.
Dan, we've lost you again. It's your internet. Um, Dan, can I make a suggestion? If you exit the Skype meeting and then come back into it again, see if we can get a better line. Okay, guys, we seem to have a problem with Dan's connection. Now, Muzi, I'm going to wrap up this live stream shortly. We've jumped around a bit, but it has been a very informal discussion. It has been a very informal discussion.
Sure.
Now, Dan, we're actually not able to hear you. Your internet connection is very poor. But look, okay, so let's wrap this up. Muzi, what are your thoughts about as we move into the second half of 2023, as we move towards 2024, and we've got an election coming up next year? What are your thoughts about what is going to happen in South Africa between now and that election day?
Well, apparently right now there's less load shedding. People are seeing it, they are feeling it, they say, oh wow, I guess they're trying to bribe us. And we know whether even if there was still load shedding, a heavy amount of it, people were still going to vote for the ANC anyway. But for now, maybe we can expect a decent sailing. I could be wrong, but a decent sailing because, yeah, they want to impress, they want to convince people to vote. So I'd say the absolute worst has happened already in the country.
Yeah.
Now in August, the BRICS.
Sorry. Welcome back, Dan. Welcome back, Dan.
Thank you. Can you hear better?
Yeah. Look, I think that'll be better now. Sorry, carry on, Muzi.
The BRICS summit is coming up in August, I think, and a lot of people have already been throwing conspiracy theories that the earthquake that happened in Joburg on Sunday was Project HARP. It was a warning that don't let Putin come here, blah, blah, blah. I don't think any of that is going to be that much of a big deal. But when we do enter next year and people do vote for the ANC back to square one, this time they might like straight up switch everything off for a week or 5 days for everyone. And there'll be nothing anyone can do because they're in power again. As for the people, they will take it. They will take the evil, they will take the hardships, and they're not going to do anything about it. Instead, they're going to yell at each other, as I see a lot of people yelling at each other on Facebook. You try to be productive and organize and structure things with people. They're too jacked in the head to do so. So it's a lot that's going to happen, and I don't want to get into details because that'll just make me depressed. So all I know is I've done what I can, and I no longer have the means to prepare any further. Precaution can still be taken on my part, but no one ever listens to me. So when everything falls apart, it'll be their fault, not mine, but I'll be in the gutter as well. So just moving forward, knowing that things are only going to get worse, it's just so terrible. And at some point, it's like, I understand, young people, you don't want to talk about it because deep down you know there isn't much you can do about it. The time to do something, in a way, it's long gone. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to the future and what's going to happen in this world, it's just not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, Dan, is this? I'm going to wrap up the live stream now. Is there something you'd like to say about where you see South Africa going in the next, let's say, 12 months? Dan? I think
Froze again.
yeah, I think Dan's frozen. All right, I'm going to wrap up this live stream. Muzi, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with as a front cover for Dan's book that he's working on. And look, oh, you're back, Dan. Yeah, Dan, we just in case you can hear me, we can't hear you at all. Your screen is actually frozen. I think it's the internet that's causing the trouble. All right, I'm gonna wrap up. Muzi, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Dan, thank you for joining us tonight as well. And Dan agreed to join at the last moment, so it's a wonderful pleasure to have Dan here with us. Take care, guys, and have a great evening.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Dan. Bye.
Take care, Dan. All right, guys, I'm going to go out with, let me just see here. I'll just change the screen. Okay, let's go to there. I'm going to go out with Op ons Rots, and have a great evening, everybody, and don't forget tomorrow night. Tomorrow night I'm talking to Davie Rood, South Africa's top economist, and we're going to be talking about issues like Eskom and all that sort of stuff. So don't miss it. 8 p.m. tomorrow night, Davie Rood is joining me. All right, here comes Op ons Rots. Take care, guys, and have a great evening.
Ons loop hand aan hand op goue warm sand, so baie wat ek wil hê, so baie dit brand. Ek staan op my rots met golwe wat bots. Ons het geen vrees, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddeloze manne. Ons weet hulle gaan nie wen nie. Dis geskryf soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhou, want hy is in beheer. Baie sterk, dis kragte wat werk. Die gevoel in my hart, dis vrees wat wil brand. Ons is boere met trots, met my hand in my bors. Ons ken geen vrees, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddeloze manne. Ons weet hulle gaan nie wen nie. Dis geskryf soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhou, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien wat gebeur, die leer sal ons nie steur. Kom staan nog 'n keer, ek is stil, want ek weet hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddeloze weer terug aan die penny. Dis geskryf, soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhou glo, want hy is in beheer. Ons die al die planne van goddelose manne. Ons weet